Hello, Spartan Nation. This is Q the Woodshed. Got Ken, the super cool Spartan, back in the building, along with my brother Brian, the super mad Spartan, kicking off our winter edition of Q the Woodshed here. And Brian, how are things with you, sir, since we last had our recording? How are the holidays and New Year so far?
It's a new year, new and hope. It was is it Hope Springs Eternal or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, we're in the time of rebirth in the Spartan program. So hopefully, spring football coming up, time of rebirth, maybe we could come back to being a real football team and competing on the field.
Yes. New hopes, new dreams. Hopefully, those dreams will turn into a good, decent season this coming up year. I mean, we still got a few months out, but I do think that MSU football is going in the right direction with what we've heard and read and whatnot. And we'll just see what happens. Definitely had a good holiday, and I know we kicked it at your house for Christmas a little bit. Got some family photos in and whatnot, doing what families do. So,
Yeah.
so all right. Well, let's get to it, as we say. Um, I guess we start with good Sparty, bad Sparty. I mean, nothing really bad, I would say overall, but you know,
No, nothing bad really. It's been all good vibes coming from the football program so far. Johnson Smith came in, got his staff together. They have the full staff together now as of this recording. Just kind of look at some of the reactions across the nation. Michigan State supposedly has a competent football staff. We'll see who will take the field because we've been told before, hey, we're good, everything's going fine and ready, and with the last regime, that wasn't the case. But it seems that everything's going on just it's going as good as we thought it could possibly go right now with having a head coach fired at the beginning of the year and just getting a new head coach about
right?
a month and a half ago,
Yeah,
maybe a couple months
yeah.
ago now, excuse me.
I mean, that right there in itself, just gives some hope. That we got through the turmoil of Mel Tucker, who I just read recently has been banned from the university. I mean, he can't even sniff Michigan State. So, but having Jonathan Smith as the new coach, my initial impression of him seems to be pretty good. I mean, I know when after his initial hiring and press conference, I read some of the comments, online. It's kind of funny talking about, oh, it looks like like the next high school gym teacher, those type of those type of things. But I mean, just based off what I've read about him, and I think maybe a couple weeks ago, I listened to his interview with Mike Valeni on 97.1, the ticket that he did, I think last month. Um, he seems to be pretty straightforward. It does sound like he has, some kind of plan in place, to kickstart the program. It seems like he's been very aggressive, which, basically, I mean, I know he's been put in that position, but, he's been aggressive in recruiting, transfer
He
portal,
has to be.
yeah, exactly. But I think it looks like it's bearing its, some good responses in those fronts rather. So my initial impression seems to be pretty good. But like you said, it has to translate to the field. So we'll just see what happens there. But from what I've read, and also I know I did see, some Instagram videos of some of his assistant coaches. I saw the one, I think, with the running backs coach, Keith Bonafa. If I'm mispronouncing his last name, I do apologize. But he seems to be a
Yeah,
pretty cool and fun dude.
yeah, he's like the assistant coach.
So, I think that,
Yeah, I think he has the
Yeah.
title of assistant head coach as
So
well.
I think that my initial impression, I think, going to the right track.
Definitely seems one thing I wanted to touch upon, like you said, is a plan in place. Because you follow the recruiting and the last regime, they talked a good game about what they wanted from recruiting, and it seemed more like they were interested in body types instead of hey, body types and um,
Right.
production, especially the transfer portal. I think if you look at the guys that was recently brought in, they're all solid players already. They're not players who hadn't proven anything at their old school and seem like they might just all right looking for a fresh opportunity. Not saying you can't take those players, but you need to have guys who are known football come out and say, "Hey, what can you do?" Because I really don't think that Michigan State was far off from being a 7-5, 8-4 football team.
Right.
I'm not saying it's like the
Right.
greatest in the world, but
It seems to me
not the
that
greatest we've been in the last few
Jonathan
years.
Smith is kind of like um D'Antonio in a way that, or in a sense that, kind of getting back to the more of the finding the diamonds in the rough, so to speak, development. That was something that Coach Smith really talked about in his initial press conference and some of the other interviews that I've heard with him, about development, finding the right players for the program. It's similar to D'Antonio to an extent. And of course, now, everything is with the NIL and whatnot. Of course, D'Antonio never had to go through that, but, I just see some similar themes there. Now, from what I've seen, and maybe it's a good time to, transition into talking about, the players, and the roster and what, but it seems like, he picked up some pretty good players in the portal, who are, 4 stars, maybe high three, what have you. So, like I said, I think the trajectory seems to be on the up and up. One thing I will say that, and I really don't know about, the defensive coordinator that he hired. I know that he came from Minnesota. I don't know that much about him, but just from what I've read, and we know that, both the coordinators we harped on a lot, this past season. Um, so I know the defensive coordinator. We'll see how
Yes.
that's done. Offensive coordinator, I believe he came over from Oregon State with Jonathan Smith. So, like you said, it remains to be seen. But one thing I do like, and I talked about it in the off
Yes.
season or this past season, is having an offensive minded head coach more, because one thing that we really lacked this past season was the ability to have an offense that really attacked the opposing defense. And there are a myriad of reasons why, but
I mean, let's just put it straight.
true.
The offense was not good. They were not good at all. And as bad as people was talking about the defense, I think the offense was worse. And it had a lot to do with mostly schematics. Is
uh,
for the longest time in college football, the offense has been the easier part of the side of the ball. The rules are made in your favor. And it seemed like we our last offensive coordinator didn't seem like they schemed people to get open. It seemed more like, all right, we're going to run our stuff, and if you have superior talent at certain positions, it works. So you saw what happens when you have an electric running back like Kenneth Walker. You have NFL
right,
receivers on the outside. You have a big play, great
right,
looking offense. But you need to have. You're not going to have that every year. So you have to have the ability to just have a steady
Yeah, I think
offense.
it is.
And I think what we've seen from John Smith and the coordinator, I think it's Brian Lundgren, sorry for mispronouncing his last name. They have a modern style pro offense where they use motion, they use different concepts. Hey,
Right.
we're gonna do this to see what your defense is going to do. It makes at least uh, we have an offense that's gonna make people think sometimes. So part of the problem last year we just lined up and just did it. No pre-stat motion. Hey, what are we in zone? Are they in zone? Does it look like man? And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a big X and O's technical guy, but I know those small little pieces. And there's different better write ups on if you're gonna go like
Mm-hmm.
Spartan Mag, Spartan Illustrated, I think it's called now. They have a good write up on the new offense, so I'm excited to see that as well. And in terms of the defensive
Uh-huh.
coordinator, Joe Rossi, Minnesota's had a good defense for the last few years. At least they're structurally sound. Because again, I don't know. We go as hard back to the previous regime. What were we trying to do? Sometimes didn't even know. Like, what defense are we trying to run? Does it require everyone to be
Right.
a 5-star above average talent, person? Because you're not going to get those people all the time. You need to have something that is strictly sound that a normal college football player can execute. And then once you find your
Right.
guys who are your
That, yeah,
superstars, then you can
definitely
kind
makes
of build
sense.
around that. But at
Definitely
the
makes
surface, it
sense.
always has to be
I
base
think it helps
level
too
good.
that, him coming from the Pac-12, the now defunct Pac-12, that whole conference is all about offense. And with the new teams coming into the Big Ten now from the Pac-12, I think that helps with, him having that background playing in that league in terms of offenses. So, like I said, on the up and up, I think our trajectory is moving forward. I mean, at the very least, we should get 6 wins. I mean, at the very least.
I mean, low bar, we should like that. It's and I'll say this, and I because we've been through the good and bad times with the type of profile that Michigan State
True.
has. It's the athletic profile. We should never be trying to just fight to be bowl eligible.
Right.
And now in this day and
Definitely agree
age
with
with the
that.
12-team playoffs, we need to be fighting to be in that 12-team playoffs. First couple years, okay. I know we got a new system, new program going on. We're still getting
Oh
our
yeah,
feet wet, but
yeah,
year
I definitely
three, all
agree
right,
with that, and I think it's
that needs to be the
obtainable.
expectation.
I mean, it may not be this year, maybe not even next year. Well, I would think within the next 3 years, by year three, we should be at least fighting for, a spot in the playoff. Because now, I mean, when
By that time, uh, Coach Smith will have all his players. You can submit things to the portal. I'm not saying you should build your whole roster to the portal, but you can find some stop gaps. Like, this year and
yes,
next year, a big thing for our team is going to be defensive tackle because we kind of let the cover kind of bare. Thank goodness a lot of those guys came back. In testament to Coach Smith and his new staff
yeah,
of
I
getting
think in
guys
the
to
off
come back,
season there
so it
were,
wouldn't
from what I
be
read, maybe
we
about
have nobody at certain
11
position groups.
players, if not more, that entered the portal. And Coach Smith was able to retain most of those players. Well, of course, all the quarterbacks left, which we expected that. And I believe Tyrell Henry went to Wisconsin, and I think the one of the kickers went
Yes,
to somewhere. I can't remember where.
yes.
I think he went to
I'm not sure
Missouri.
what the kicker. I know
Yeah,
the other one was Zion Young. He went to, I think it's Missouri. He's an up and coming defensive end, but
yeah. A
yeah,
couple of them were declared for the
sucks to see him
draft
leave.
too.
But
I think
It is what it is.
Jacoby Windman declared for the
Chases
draft,
him in,
and
chases
declared for the
chases
draft,
him in,
and
chases dreams.
what's his name? Brule, Aaron Brule. So
Yes.
yeah, I think Coleman. I think
Brule, yeah,
Jacoby
I
did
think he
too.
had exhausted a lot of his eligibility as well. So he was
Yeah.
going regardless, but he was a he. You could tell he's one of the players
Oh,
who
okay.
cared.
Well, hopefully those guys'
Jacoby could
names
have
are
came back for one
called
more year, but
um,
he
in
decided to go to the
April here in
draft.
Detroit because the draft going to be in the Motor City. As far as for the, we're talking about the players, the current roster and everything. As we were saying, Coach Smith did a good job of retaining a lot of players, that did declare for the portal, came back. I think he did a really good job in the portal as far as bringing in some top-notch talent. Obviously, who I think I read was the number one QB in the portal was Aiden Childs. If he wasn't the top, QB, he was one of them.
And the transfer, we don't know about these rankings. Yeah, one of the top available. That's kind of based on potential and where they're at. We'll see what I'm glad we got Aiden Childs to come to Michigan State because it's someone that is
Yeah,
familiar
yeah,
with Coach Smith
definitely.
and the offensive coordinator. So he's already been in their system. And he's going to be the starting quarterback. I don't think there's any doubt about that because they also got another quarterback as well. I think it was a Division 3 guy or Division 2. I'm not,
Yeah.
you know. Anyway, he was a highly rated quarterback there. So it's good to have him as he's compete. And if Childs gets hurt, we have somebody who has some experience to come in. They totally rebuilt the quarterback room, and we got a couple of commits. Some guys who may have some good promise up in a couple years. So
Yes.
you got to have a quarterback. And Michigan State's on paper seems to have a really
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah, I
We'll
agree
see
with that.
what how things fold out. I don't foresee there being any issues there. Hopefully,
Yeah, yeah.
we
I'm
have a star
definitely
in the
excited
making.
with the quarterback situation here. And um, as far as, keeping a good number of the recruits, like Nick Marsh, I know Coach Smith has said in his interview with Mike Valeni and Rico is that I think he was like the first person he saw
Yes,
after getting the job. So it is good that Nick Marsh, still stuck with the program because he definitely could have said, you know what, I'm out of here. But
it,
yeah,
it was shocking. Someone with options decided to stay. So that just
winter
shows how much he
conditioning.
actually loves the
Okay.
university. And hopefully, I believe they already enrolled and they already started the winter conditioning. So yes, it was already on campus, and we'll see. The wide receiver room is very interesting looking. We don't we have a lot of hope there, though proven commodities. So there's opportunity for people to step in. I would suspect they'll try to add another receiver in this next transfer window, just to see if we can get somebody who could come in and be your clear number one or high level number two. Because we have the transfer TJ Shufford, I think it is from Purdue. His stats is kind of up in
Mm-hmm.
the air right now. Some things going on in the background. We'll see. He makes it to campus in the springtime or the summertime, and then this guy's coming back. We got Monterey Foster who started coming on at the end of the year. We don't know if he's all right. Is he going to morph into be a number one receiver, or is he
Mm-hmm.
just going to be a high level number two? I don't know. We definitely saw some ability there last year.
Yep.
And then we have other guys that kind of just like, all right, we saw a couple things from Nintendo Games Jr. Flashes, not a whole lot there to see, but flashes. The same thing with Jerron Gulliver, who was another guy who came back from the transfer portal. There were some big catches he made down the field. He was hurt a little bit last year. So there's hope, nothing proven. but that can be said about a lot of um, position groups on the team. There's some, hey, if they're just solid, we're okay, you know. But that's really what Michigan State needs to
Oh
get
yeah,
back, is having a collection of solid football players, like-minded, headed in the same direction. Because I can get you a lot of wins. Now, will it get you a Big Ten championship? You're gonna need talent for that, like higher talent level and higher skill level of playing. But definitely, if you have a bunch of solid players all moving in the same direction, doing the same
oh
things,
yeah, yeah. That's definitely
knowing
a
what they're
start.
doing and when they're supposed to be
Because
doing
like
it,
with when
that can
D'Antonio
go
first
big.
took over,
That's 7, 8 wins
I
right
think
there.
his first season he went 7-5, and then I think he maybe went to 8-4. Had a couple of 6-6 seasons, but then things started to take off where he eventually won first Big Ten championship, and just we know the history. But I mean, the good thing is in this era of college football with the transfer portal, I mean, you can become successful relatively quickly, if you're able to hit on the right guys. Yeah, it has been. I mean, in the previous regime,
Hitting on the
outside
right
of
guys has been
2021,
that's been
yes,
the
that is
problem.
correct.
There's I wouldn't even say previous regime. I would say
No,
just
I
in
agree.
general, you
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
want to build your majority of your roster through the transfer portal. Now you want to be able to supplement spots here and there, but for the most part, I think uh, Tucker and them had to rely on the portal way too
Right.
much with players who had high ratings, but maybe not so much high film, good football skills, that proven football commodities. A lot of little things are coming out now, little cracks you kind of saw, but we kind of ignored. Now you kind of look back like, yeah, I kind of thought that might be an issue, and it was, but we didn't know. But hopefully, it's got to reset. The players who the coaches want to be here, and the players who want to be
Yeah, I
here
am
decide
too.
to stay, and
And
we'll
with the
see. I'm
addition
excited
of
for it.
the teams coming in from the Pac-12, it'll definitely make it more interesting. And I believe that MSU, I mean not MSU, the Big Ten's going away from the divisions, which I don't see that. I mean, I don't know how they'll manage that with 20, 20 teams now, I think, in the conference. 18 to 20 teams.
Oh, I think it works out better for Michigan State because you don't have to play the
Yeah, that's
gauntlet of Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State every year, because those teams are going to be three solid teams every year. And so our only, you know, guarantee there is Michigan. And so that definitely helps our schedule wise. And now the Big Ten has lost a
right.
lot of good players across the board. So it's interesting to see who's going to be the big dog next year.
And
Even with the
coaches.
teams coming from the Pac-12, most of them
Kalen
lost a lot of
DeBar with
players too.
Washington, he signed with
And
Alabama.
Michigan, they just won a national championship. The coach is gone.
The big time
The coach
quarterbacks,
is
from the Pac-12.
he's gone. All right. The Who else?
Right.
Yeah, and so Caleb Williams going from USC. So what's USC gonna look like? The only team I think, only two teams well, three teams I think are still gonna be really good. It's going to be Oregon, Ohio State,
Those
and
violations
Michigan's
hit.
always pretty solid. But we'll see what they're looking like after
And those
you
violations
know
hit.
a bunch of their guys are gone. They won a championship. Now off to the NFL. we'll s- we'll see what really happens. I'm not going to trust the NCAA to do a whole lot. I
Oh yeah,
think
it'll lighten the
it's a
load.
comment just on Harbaugh leaving Michigan. It was probably what's best for both parties. Anybody with a brain can see that. Oh yeah, they were talking about this hardball extension to beginning of last season. It never got done. There's all some hiccup, something. Well, it's imminent, and then it goes away. So anytime there was a big roar about the cheating scandal, the contract story comes out there. Although, Michigan has all the confidence in the world in Jim Harbaugh, they're going to re-sign they have this extension out there, and then they they
Oh
couldn't come
yeah,
together, and at the
yeah.
last second, Harbaugh already had taken the Chargers job, and it's just all media spin, and that's fine.
Oh yeah.
It is what it is. They're gonna probably promote, or if they might already promote Sharon Moore to be the head coach. I don't know. I haven't really been paying attention to Michigan. I know Michigan fans think they all live rent free in their heads. Like I don't pay attention to that program a whole lot. But anyway, back to it. The main point is that the Big Ten itself, I feel like it's gonna be up for grabs next season, and that
hmm
favors Ohio State, who probably has, you know, top to bottom most talent, and then Oregon, top to bottom, probably has the next most talent, and then Michigan, top to bottom, has probably the next most talent. Than Penn State. Then everybody else, I don't know.
Right, and they went
USC,
7-5 last year, which is a
okay, they don't
surprise.
have their quarterback. What are they going to be?
I was shocked that USC only went
Can
seven
Michigan
and
State
five
rise up
last
and be
year.
that mid-tier team?
Like, how you have Caleb Williams as the quarterback? Caleb Williams will play defense, but I'm like, wow.
I mean, your defense can't stop anybody. Like nobody.
So, yeah, this coming up season
No,
will be quite
he doesn't.
interesting. Based off what you said. Um, with all the talent that was in the Pac-12 going to be leaving, declaring for the draft, graduating, transferring, what have you. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And it really, as a whole, college football is going to be interesting because with Nick Saban retiring, which was shocking to see that, and some of the top players of Alabama now, leaving. I thought he would at least stayed. I thought he would at least stay one more
I don't
year.
think it's that shocking.
Just the way that they lost, I thought he would have
I
stuck it out
think
maybe
we're
one
just
more
seeing
year. But hey, it is what it is. He's the GOAT of college football, so it don't matter.
I just feel like it. It doesn't. It didn't really surprise me that Nick Saban is retiring. Just you saw it first in college basketball. Once they changed the rules about NIL and
Yeah,
transfer portals, you started seeing a lot of the older coaches say, "I'm not dealing with it. I'm out."
yeah,
We saw Krzyzewski from Duke. Saw Jay Wright. You've seen a bunch of these guys. The big time names in basketball. Just peace out. And then football definitely is going to be next. Because there's all right. Who's
yeah.
the big, huge, head coach in college football right now? Nick Saban was it. Now you have a bunch of guys in the 30s and
Oh
40s.
yeah, definitely.
Kirby Smart might be
Oh
the
yeah,
the next
most
Saban.
definitely.
Because Georgia, I'm sure they're going to come out, with their hair on fire next season.
Well, they won't come, this year
I
with
actually
the
think
12
Georgia
team
got
playoffs,
screwed, but
so they'll be in it.
that's neither here nor there.
They'll be back in the mix. So, but
For
well, like we're
sure.
saying, at the very least, if we can get to
It's
six
surprising
and
to be
six,
outside the
seven and
club hating.
five, considering where it was at the past 2 years,
Maybe.
I'll consider that a good first step. Go to some decent bowl game.
I'll take it as a
That's
first
better
step,
than
but
sitting at home and
also
doing
it
nothing.
should be an expectation. If Jonathan Smith is any type of coach like we think he is, this team should easily be 6-6, 7-5. Because those teams we talk about the last 2 years weren't far off from that record. And that's with a coaching staff that we all can agree was subpar.
In that, As long as we can go 6-6, 7-5, the first year, I consider that a pretty good step considering the past couple years we've been sitting at home and mad and wondering what if, what if, what if.
Well, the what if now is hopefully we have the best coach that was available. Because just kind of thinking about the timing of it all, Michigan State could have been left out for head coaches.
That is
Like,
true.
this thing about how Nick Saban retires and that, A&M, because, we wanted Elko, and then, all right, he would talk about what about the board? The board goes to Alabama,
And he
and
went relatively
then,
quickly,
you
too.
know,
I mean, Alabama really moved on that real quick. They weren't messing around.
yeah,
They was like, Nick Saban
I
retired.
believe they all
Okay,
have the
yep,
same agent.
right. So,
Because yeah, we're done real quick. But yeah, I'm glad we got Jonathan Smith, and we'll see this. All the signs right now are pointing that Michigan State is headed in the right direction. It seems to have made, and the Michigan has seemed to have made competent moves.
mm-hmm.
The coaching staff has seemed to make competent moves. We can see the change in recruiting strategy already. They're
Yes.
actually, one thing I read, not to harp too much on the past, was that a lot of the position coaches weren't actually going out and recruiting. It was like the people in the recruiting department going to see these kids. Not actually like see these people are just not they didn't actually meet the actual position coaches sometimes, which is very curious. How you're trying to establish relationships if you're not even going to some of these places. And so it's good to see that, the position coaches are actually out on the road going to meet these recruits. So
That's interesting. I
we'll see
I
if it
actually
all
didn't
pays
know that.
dividends.
Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
there were
That's a
some
good nugget
issues.
because well, once it came out to me that after Mel Tucker got that big contract and he decided to hire a PR firm to
You always
represent
forget the
the
PR
Mel
firm.
Tucker brand. I'm like, okay, to me that was a red flag because now you're talking about promoting you as a head coach, you're promoting yourself more than the program. So when I read about that after the fact, I'm like, okay, yeah. And what you just said, I mean, that kind of makes sense.
They weren't as relentless as we thought. But
Right.
anyway, I'm looking forward to spring ball. So we'll start getting some more tidbits of, information coming about who's looking good, who's the next hope we can get, hope train we can attach ourselves onto.
Right.
And then spring ball ends, and then we can just have all the speculation in the world. And then comes June camp, and then we're like, okay, we're getting the swing of it, convincing ourselves what our team is going to be. I'm ready for it all.
I know. I am too. I just read that MSU picked up a kicker today, I think, or maybe earlier in the week, a kicker.
Yeah, he was previously committed to Oregon State, so it's somebody the coaching staff was familiar with, and they got him to come up to East Lansing. And he said, "All right, cool, let's go."
Good deal. Good deal. So, anything else for the cause?
No, that's it. I know it's been a little while. We had, things that kind of they moved very fast once Coach Smith was hired, and now kind of in a slowing down period, getting to know some people. He's getting his name out there, and I keep on saying, right now everything seems to be headed in the right direction. That's all we can ask.
Right. Right. Yeah. And basketball program has been doing better as of late. They grinded out a
Better,
couple
yes.
good wins. They about to take on those Fighting Badgers in a few minutes.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Haven't looked too hot on the road.
Now, even though they picked up a good win at Maryland this past weekend, because I
They
read
tried
that,
to pick up a good loss.
yeah, man, yeah, they almost did. I mean, they definitely trending towards that, but you know, the basketball guys were with them, and I have read prior to that game that Maryland only had lost once. I don't know if it was all season or since last year. They only lost once at home until this
Yeah,
past
Maryland's a
weekend.
lot like Michigan State. They kind of didn't start out so great, but they've been rounding in the form. So it was a good win.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a struggle at the end. It
it
was some
was.
classic Tom Izzo things that happened, but you got the victory. That's all that matters.
Yes, yes, yeah. So, well, all right. To end the program per the usual, gotta educate the audience on, MSU football history, about the program and whatnot. So, um, Brian, how many head coaches you think MSU has had in the football program? Just take a wild guess.
11.
They've had a few more coaches in their illustrious history. Counting Jonathan Smith, MSU has had 26 head coaches in its program history. Of course, Coach Smith is the 26th coach, but MSU has had 26 head coaches. And that's going back to its inception back in the late 1800s, I believe. Maybe before
As soon
that,
as I said
but
11, I was like, that's way too low, but it's the first number that popped into my head.
yeah, they've had 26 head coaches. So we've had our share of good coaches, great coaches, not so good coaches, probably like most programs, but we've had 26 total.
Seems
So,
about right.
yeah. So, other than that, I think we've talked about as much as we can, to kick off our winter edition of Cue the Woodshed. And, for our listening audience, we're going to be kicking off a new type of program, for the winter. We're going to do what we call our Classic Player Series, where we're going to be interviewing former Spartan players, just to talk about, their times playing at Michigan State, what they're currently doing now, get their thoughts on the program, up to this point. So that should be an exciting series for us before we roll back into, the upcoming football season. So, something a little different, but at the same time, going to keep that Cue the Woodshed hotness going on for everybody. And also make sure you guys check out our social media, TikTok, Instagram, Cue the Woodshed. I will say that we've had a lot of good feedback and responses on our social media the past couple of months. So make sure you guys check it out. And with that, I'm Ken, the super cool Spartan. This is my brother Brian, the super mad Spartan. But there's nothing to be mad about right now. So
Not
everything
right
is all
now. That's true.
good.
That will change eventually.
Everything is all good right now. So stay tuned for our Classic Player Series, and we'll be talking to y'all soon. Peace, and go green,
Go
and go
white.
white. We out.